Hi guys, cinematic recap here. Before we start, warning. Spoilers ahead. Today, I'm gonna explain an American science fiction and survival movie, called The Martian. In 2035, a group of astronauts codenamed Ares 3 has a mission to explore the Acidalia Planitia region on Mars and gather the samples in the area. They have explored the area for 18 solar day of their 31 solar day expedition. The crew consists of Commander Melissa Lewis, botanist Mark Watney, Systems Operator Beth Johansson, Pilot Rick Martinez, Flight Surgeon Chris Beck, Navigator and Chemist Alex Vogel. After a while, Johansson learns that a severe dust storm will threaten to topple their Mars ascent vehicle. Therefore, Commander Lewis decides to abort their mission and orders the rest of the crew to return to the rocket as soon as possible. But as the crew evacuates, a satellite dish breaks off and strikes Watney, knocking him out of sight of the rest of the crew. Commander Lewis tries to guide the others to find Watney, but that becomes impossible as their visibility is very poor and the storm is too strong for them. Because of that, Watney is erroneously presumed dead and they decide to leave the area without him. With the vehicle on the verge of toppling, luckily the remaining crew is barely able to take off for their orbiting vessel, the Hermes. On Earth, NASA's administrator, Teddy Sanders holds a press conference to announce that the crew has survived while Mark Watney was lost and he was declared dead. Meanwhile, Watney awakens 3 days after the storm. He is injured and his oxygen is running low because his stomach is stabbed by an iron. He returns to the crew's surface habitat aka HAB and treats his wound immediately. As Watney recovers, he begins a video diary as a documentary that he is still alive on Mars and surviving alone on the planet. Since he is unable to communicate with Earth, his only chance of rescue is the next Mars mission. It will be 4 years before the Ares 4 will land 2,000 miles away at the Schiaparelli crater. Not only that, his other concern right now is the food supply. On Sol 21, he begins to collect the remaining food supplies and set a schedule so that the food can last as long as possible. At that time, he has an amazing idea as a botanist. He begins fixing the solar panels and tidying up the HAB, which is quite messy, and preparing the land inside as a farm field. On Sol 24, he has finished preparing his farm field. He then uses the Martian soil fertilized with the crew's bio-waste to grow potatoes. Another problem occurs on Sol 36 when the water supply is running low. Fortunately, he has another idea for manufacturing water from leftover rocket fuel. He combines oxygen and hydrogen, which are ignited together. Unfortunately, his first attempt has failed, causing a moderate explosion that singes his clothes and hair. However, his experiment is successful after lowering the oxygen levels in the second attempt. In the morning, Watney finds a lot of water due on the plastic covering his potato farm. On Sol 54, it turns out that his potato farm on Mars is starting to bear fruit. At the same time, he is happy because this is the first plant to grow on the planet. Back on Earth, Sanders has just returned from a memorial service for Mark Watney where he spoke about Watney's dedication to the mission. NASA's director of Mars missions, Vincent Kapoor, asks Sanders for Watney's body to be retrieved on Mars, but he refuses because the satellite feeds are public and broadcasting pictures of Watney's body would be a political issue for them. Later, one of the NASA's satellite planners is reviewing the satellite images. Surprisingly, she discovers evidence of activity on Mars in recent days. The solar panels have been cleaned and the rover has moved. She then reports her findings to Victor and the rest of NASA leaders, but they choose to keep it a secret from the Ares 3 crew so that they will remain focused on their mission. Back to Watney, as he continues to work on his food supply, he keeps going with the video diary and plans to use a rover to make it to the Schiaparelli crater. Since the battery-powered rover cannot cover the whole distance, he begins modifying the rover by adding solar cells and an extra battery. In addition, the supply of food to be brought must be sufficient because the journey is estimated to take 30 days. Watney eventually takes the rover on a 1-month journey to retrieve the Pathfinder probe, which fell silent in 1997. He digs the old probe out of the sand, spreads its solar panels to charge the batteries, and finally discovers that the probe still works. Using handwritten signs for the Pathfinder's camera, he establishes visual contact with NASA, confirming that he is still alive. After that, Watney generates a hexadecimal code and sends the code to Earth. Thus, NASA transmits a software patch to link the rover with Pathfinder, which enables him to communicate by text. He also finds out that Ares 3's crew still doesn't know he is alive and responds with obscenities. As a result, Sanders finally allows the flight director of Ares 3, Mitch Henderson, to inform Watney's crewmates that Watney is still alive and NASA has kept it from them for the past 2 months to not distract them from their mission. Meanwhile, things begin to go bad for Watney when the HAB's airlock blows out, exposing the HAB to the harsh Martian environment which kills all of the potato plants. With less food, he now estimates he can last less than 300 sols. On Sol 154, he is running out of food. Inevitably, he has to ration his food by eating once every 3 days. On the other hand, NASA works overtime and quickly launch a rocket filled with food to resupply Watney so he can survive until Ares 4's arrival. Unluckily, the rocket explodes soon after liftoff as Sanders ordered the routine safety inspections to be bypassed. On Sol 186, Watney is completely desperate because it's hard to survive. He is starving and at the moment he cannot make any more food reserves. Meanwhile, in China, the directors of the China National Space Administration witness the explosion and discuss to help NASA by offering their secret booster rocket, the Taiyong-Shan. The decision is made to use the booster rocket to resupply Watney. However, an astrodynamicist, Rich Purnell, devises an alternative plan for NASA. The plan is to have the Taiyong-Shan rendezvous with and resupply the Hermes, which will then use Earth's gravity to slingshot back to Mars 2 years earlier than Ares 4. At first, Sanders rejects the idea because it is too risky for the Hermes crew and will extend their mission by hundreds of days. At the same time, Henderson surreptitiously sends Purnell's proposal to the crew and the crew immediately talks it over. They understand that the surreptitious arrival of the plan means that NASA has rejected the plan. In the end, Commander Lewis calls for a unanimous vote and they all agree to go back for Watney without seeking NASA approval. Johansson hacks NASA's computers to disable their remote controls and making the course change. Because of this, Sanders is very angry with Henderson, who is assumed to have sent the plan to Hermes. He explains that his priority for NASA is to keep flying and the bad publicity that would ensue if Purnell's plan fails would likely reduce NASA's budget for years to come. At the end, he is forced to support the crew publicly, but he also requests for Henderson's resignation when the mission is completed. 7 months pass on Mars. Watney has lost a lot of weight and has grown a lot of facial hair. Before he starts his journey, he records a video diary asking Commander Lewis to let his parents know of his fate. Shortly after, NASA sends him instructions for making extensive modifications to the rover, which confuses Watney even more. He finally begins the 90-sol journey to Schiaparelli, where the Mars ascent vehicle for Ares 4 has been pre-positioned. On his faraway journey, Watney has to stop every day for 13 hours to sleep and recharge the rover's batteries with solar panels. In NASA's base, they explain that the gravitational force on Mars is very big and the Mars ascent vehicle which Watney will use does not have an additional rocket to reach Hermes' orbit. The only way this can be done is to considerably lighten the vehicle by removing the roof, windows, passenger seat, and some heavy components. This Mars ascent vehicle will later be controlled by Martinez from Hermes. On Sol 538, Watney eventually arrives at the location. He then proceeds to disassemble the Mars ascent vehicle as NASA instructs him to do. When the vehicle is ready, Martinez flies it by remote control, launching Watney into the orbit. Unfortunately, the vehicle runs out of fuel, so it comes up too low to reach the Hermes spaceship. Therefore, Commander Lewis quickly improvises by using sugar and oxygen explosive to blow the front hatch, causing air to escape violently and slowing down the Hermes. After that, she also decides to use a tethered man maneuvering unit to reach Watney, but she still cannot get close enough with him. Hence, Watney pierces his pressure suit to propel himself toward Lewis with the escaping air. He has very little control, so he initially misses her. Luckily, he runs into the tether which his momentum causes to revolve around himself and Lewis, so the crew manage to pull them back into the spaceship. Commander Lewis immediately announces to NASA that they have retrieved Watney. After returning to Earth, Watney becomes a survival instructor for astronaut candidates. He tells them of all his struggles on Mars. During the closing credits, it can be seen that those involved in Watney's rescue are seen in their current lives. At the same time, Ares 5 is about to launch, of which Martinez is the commander of the mission. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.